Chapter 2. Mateo, 2 days earlier. Sinner, saint, master of the universe. I couldn't help but chuckle. Maybe someone should simply call me evil. If they knew the truth about my heritage, perhaps they would. Senator Bellows, while I do understand your position, you need to fully embrace that Capodanno Enterprises will not be held hostage. You will sign your name on the dotted line, or I assure you that your lovely wife will find a complete file on your second family in her hands by the end of business today. At that moment, I was grateful for the unfounded anonymous tip on the senator's proclivities. While I ordinarily wouldn't use something of that nature without thoroughly checking, I also felt it was a necessary risk in this game of poker we seemed to be playing. He could either stand by the sect, allowing the project's approval, or be destroyed. It was that simple. I heard the man's angry, strangled sound and smiled. While I knew what level of influence the asshole politician had, I refused to fall prey to his strong-arm techniques. Even his appointment to the Appropriations Committee meant nothing to me. We owned the majority of the government. I made certain he knew that the sect owned him and could ruin everything he'd worked so hard to achieve in a matter of minutes. That was my way of doing business. I was no longer the man I'd been only 7 months before. Now, I was nothing but a predator. I will take your silence as affirmation that the project has been approved. Nice doing business with you, Senator. Good luck wallowing through the muck of Capitol Hill. I ended the call, tossing my phone and taking a deep breath. My tactics had changed in the last few months, but it was necessary. Success meant everything at this point, even if I was required to handle business in an entirely different manner. That included blackmail, initiating threats when necessary. What the hell did I care? This was nothing more than the family way, the Capodanno family. I snickered at the thought. We were a product of the sacred sect, holding more power in our hands than God himself. Lies. I'd been conceived in lies and had lived them my entire life. While I knew I should let go of the past, I was a different man since finding out my father wasn't the brutal monster Nicholas Capodanno. Instead, I was the bastard son of Father Joseph McGivney, the priest who'd been allowed far too much control over the illustrious group of wealthy and powerful families. Secrets. Now I lived with a dark and dangerous secret, one that could destroy the powerful shield surrounding the sacred sect. Some would call it a weapon. I called it a noose. Since the day I'd found out the truth, nothing had been the same. Not my idealism or my work ethic, not my penchant for food or drink, and definitely not my taste in women. I was hungry for something darker. That would come in time, and only when I was finished accomplishing my goals. As my brother liked to say, my attempt at ruling the world. Maybe I was. All that really mattered to people was money and clout. I'd learned a vast amount of information in these few months. Ruthless. I'd never appreciated the term until recently. Now I relish the noble expression, the one used by a good number of employees within Capodanno Enterprises. As CFO, I mandated not only their loyalty, but a work ethic that was undeniably harsh. However, I expected results. After the scandal the family and the company had been embroiled in, nothing could be left to chance, including additional betrayal. The sacred sect wouldn't allow it. Our community had been fractured, almost to the breaking point. The 5 men who'd ruled the oppressive council reduced to 2. My brother ascending to the throne without a single pushback. My brother was now in charge. Continuity had been needed. While I continued to rule our group with iron fists, certain aspects had been forced to change, upsetting many of the families. At this point, I wanted nothing to do with the sect, but I was required by blood to perform certain duties in order to keep our powerful hold over dozens of outside organizations, keeping the wolves at bay. I worked long hours and had since taken over both positions. Finally, the financials of Capodanno Enterprises were exactly as I demanded early on. The $6 million embezzled from the sect almost fully refunded. I'd also come to the realization that I was exhausted. As I pushed back from my desk, folding my arms over my head, I took a deep breath. The weekend was finally mine. A smile crossed my face at the thought. I swiveled in my chair, thinking about exactly where to go. Maybe a casino. I'd certainly seen enough beaches over the last few months to last a damn lifetime. The knock on the door was the last thing I wanted to hear, and I had a suspicion I knew who was behind it. "Come." "Brother." Christian walked in, his usual dark suit matching his surly attitude. The sense of power had changed him, even though he'd found a woman who'd been able to keep him in line. I snickered at the thought, their arranged marriage one of the few that had worked. We disagreed on almost everything, including our way of life. My gut told me it was about to be challenged again. "And to what do I owe this pleasure?" I moved to a standing position as I studied him. He seemed even tenser than normal, his eyes holding a heightened level of contempt. The man was within days of his beautiful bride birthing their first child, and he never missed a day at the office. "Stephanie okay?" "She's ready to have this baby," he said, smiling. "I am going to be honest with you." "And Zorro?" I asked teasingly. I would have never thought my brother would enjoy having a dog. "He's been a great friend during her pregnancy." He gave me an odd look, shaking his head before closing the door, moving with deliberate steps toward the bar I'd installed in the corner of my office. I didn't like the fact he remained quiet as he prepared 2 drinks, the clinking of ice annoying me more than usual. I glanced at my watch. It was only 4 in the afternoon. Interesting. He'd come with a purpose in mind. As he handed me the drink, a smirk crossed his face. Whatever he was about to say, I knew would piss me off. "You might as well spill it, Christian. Something is going on." "You know me too well. There's unrest in the community," he said quietly, giving me a nod of respect. As usual, he held little emotion in his voice, but I knew the man better than most. "There's always unrest. Should I venture a guess? Too many vying for the vacant positions on the council?" He laughed, lifting his glass. "You are astute, brother, as always. The positions need to be filled. I'm finished with arguing and lamenting over who is the most accountable." "There are only 4 families in our unholy little association who qualify, at least according to the new rules. If I heard you correctly the other day, Mr. McCormick is far too busy with international travel for his firm to consider the honor. That leaves 3, which officially means you have to break your own rules in order to fill the last seat. Tisk tisk, brother." I'd been indoctrined into the sacred sect as a young boy, told about the requirements in order to live and find favor within the community. My father had been so proud of all that the council had accomplished, beaming the day he sat me down in his office to explain the glorious details. The few men and their families selected to be a part of the secured organization pledged allegiance to our ways, no matter the circumstances. They were also required to keep the closely guarded secrets for fear of death. We were dangerous people, after all. We'd been referred to as the Mafia of the Hamptons, a joke to true crime families, although if anyone truly knew what we were capable of, they would never attempt to cross us. We had enough ammunition on politicians, law enforcement, and corporate moguls to ruin a solid percentage of the rich and famous. That had allowed us to remain in control of various industries from real estate to transportation, our influence affecting the outcome of elections in all 50 states, and even the White House. We were much more powerful than any of the Mafia families, including the Taglionis. The Italian crime syndicate had been on our radar for several years, their failed attempts at crowding into our space continuing to piss them off. They were merely biding their time. I'd heard about a number of skirmishes in the streets of New York, corruption increasing, doing everything they could to buy their way into power. It was only a matter of time before they attempted to lure one of our members to their side, coercing them into telling our secrets. That would make for a bloody day in our world. Right now, there were far too many internal problems to worry about the Taglioni's. Sadly, for all the combined power within the sect, there was still greed and corruption, the unrest caused by the council's demand for change. So many believed in the old ways, once carved out from a man who'd been nothing but a scam artist. I feared an upheaval, allowing the piranhas who swim in the ocean waters just outside our doors a way to destroy us. They certainly had attempted to push Senator Bellows, as well as everyone else involved in the latest land development deal, in another direction. My guess was that a new round of threats had been instigated. I had the pulse of every industry, and my instincts had been on high alert. A storm was brewing. I just wasn't entirely certain who the actual enemy was. Still, the sect remained over 200 strong, families who thrived within the Hamptons, our wealth and influence beyond the understanding of outsiders. While the original intent had been only to allow the descendants of the 5 original families to hold an honored position on the council, the rules had been forced to change. The esteemed council seats had been up to 7, always an odd number. Always the most merciless men, and their firstborn sons who would continue to wield their wrath without conscience. His grin widened. You have been paying attention, and you know I'm not opposed to altering rules if necessary. Uh-huh. You only do so if there is a motive behind your decision. By the way, it's my business to know everything that's going on within the sacred sect. The single twitch crossing my brother's mouth drew my instant attention. He'd been keeping secrets from me. What is the problem? The unrest is regarding the disbanded use of the box. Exhaling, I studied his eyes. My brother had never liked the old ways, the use of a cult-like religion in order to facilitate arranged marriages and merged corporations, disgusting him. When the man who'd been responsible for maintaining the integrity of the ancient and barbaric tradition had been found altering the outcome for his own benefit, the community had almost crumbled to the ground. Sadly, that had been my true father, a man of the cloth. I hadn't wept a single tear at his passing, nor had I attended his funeral. His last dying words had damned me for life. I would never be free of the toxic stain of my true heritage. I'd never sought proof that what he'd told me was the truth, including talking to my mother. It would destroy her if she realized I'd been told. At least the arbitrary rituals, including use of the box, had been questioned. The majority tossed out. Both Christian and I had been thrilled to throw out the ridiculous concept. Daughters within the community required to open a locked wooden box on their 24th birthday, the unknown contents placed inside on the day of their christening. While various promises had been made over the years, Christian and I had realized the entire process had been orchestrated. The box contained whatever the council had wanted, whether money, land, stocks from an outside company, or the hand in marriage of an eligible bachelor from within the sect, or on one rare occasion, to an outsider. Everything had been planned. The ritual was sacred, a beautiful, hallowed experience that so many adored. Fuck that shit. It was sick and twisted. Thank God the ritual had been banned. Or had it? My instincts were kicking in. My brother's attitude questionable. Meaning? I asked, studying him intently. The hesitation before he answered raised my hackles. Every one of the 3 remaining families refuses to take the honored position unless use of the box is brought back. He stated as if the concept was no big deal. I snorted, waiting for the punchline. You are kidding me. I wish I were. As you might imagine, the unrest is getting difficult to manage. The council had to make difficult changes. You know what's at stake. If I had to read between the lines, I'd say my brother meant there'd been recent threats to expose the community for what we really were, including the lengths that had been used in order to secure positions in the upper echelon of society. That couldn't happen. We would all be ruined. Who was making the threats? The Don of the Taglioni's? I asked casually, eyeing him as I took a swig of my scotch. Maybe the question is who hasn't threatened our way of life, although there is some pressure being placed on certain government officials by the Taglianis. I am concerned they are prepared to make a move. Let me worry about that. He lifted a single eyebrow, obviously not predisposed to discussing at this point. However, I could tell he'd lost sleep over whatever duress he'd been placed under. All right, have it your way. Then what are you going to do? I asked, another instinct kicking in. He didn't come here looking for my advice. This was nothing more than a formality. Decisions had already been made. Anger swelled from deep within me, the kind that hadn't surfaced in months. The council approved returning to the ritual. That won't resolve every concern, but it will certainly go a long way in advancing our future. I allowed the information to sink in. While the decision must have been hard on my brother, I thought he was stronger than to fall prey to the old ways. I also didn't think the remaining 2 council members had a set of balls. I guess I was wrong. Wait a minute. I thought the boxes had been destroyed. Although they could have easily been recreated, the thought sickened me. When he didn't say anything, I slammed my glass on the table, the fury erupting. He'd been keeping this secret from me for some time. You lied to me, Christian. It's my duty to maintain our way of life. You know as well as I do what's at stake for 222 families. I made a choice to secure the boxes in a secret location. But yes, I kept them. I had to. Had to? That's bullshit and you know it. You wanted them burned. You. Christian looked uncomfortable, which told me that he was hiding more than just an ugly lie. I was finished with being kept in the dark. My God. More secrets, Christian. You're a fucking bastard. I didn't realize during these last few months that you turned into one of them. Like father, like son. The thought left a bad taste in my mouth. Was I any better? We are 2 of a kind, brother. Don't kid yourself. You have no issue enjoying the fruits of our father's labor. Cars, boats, that expensive house you live in. Where the fuck do you think that came from? He lifted his glass, daring me to say otherwise. You're right. We are alike, dear brother. Damned. To his credit, after the pact made between Christian, his wife, and me on the day of Father McGivney's deathbed announcement, he'd never brought it up again. It was our secret, a blood oath between family. I felt the noose tightening. He clenched his jaw, his gaze falling from my face to my chest. I'd never seen him frazzled, but he was damn close. Then so be it. But I refuse to allow outsiders to undermine our hard work. The only way is to keep the chains firmly locked around the proverbial doors of our community. The man wanted something else, not just my approval of his actions. I took a deep breath, calming my anger. There was more going on here than simple threats. Then so be it. But I refuse to allow outsiders to undermine our hard work. The only way is to keep the chains firmly locked around the proverbial doors of our community. Why are you here? He took a sip of his drink, inching closer to my desk. I need your support. The first ritual may be difficult. Difficult? That means the woman selected is clueless. Who is the poor girl required to face her destiny? Winter O'Brien. The name didn't register at first, but I already felt sorry for her. If the collection of boxes had been left untouched from before, her entire life was about to change. Everything she'd cherished up to this point, gone. Then I realized who her father was in relation to the community and the very reason the O'Briens had been allowed to join the sect. The O'Briens not only had strong family ties to the New York police and fire departments, senators and judges, they were also connected to the Irish Mafia, at least according to certain speculation. How fucking astute. If the Taglianis had threatened people who were under the care and protection of the sect, what better way to diffuse the issue? Or have it explode? Either way, this would be just another calculated layer of protection for the sect and the community as a whole. I wasn't in the mood to take this big of a gamble. What do you need from me? A jolly good fellow pat on the back? What a brilliant tactic. That's not going to happen. He walked closer, the coldness of his eyes almost startling. I need you at the party tomorrow night, Mateo. We must show a force of solidarity. Everyone in the sect looks up to the Capodanno family. I laughed. My God, the man was more power-hungry than I'd realized. Not a chance in hell. I'm not going to sit by and pretend this ridiculous cult-like sacrament is anything but what it is. A fucking lie. I don't give a shit if you coerce another arranged marriage, but I want no part of it. You once believed in that fucking lie, Mateo. You even encouraged me to follow through with our father's wishes in marrying Stephanie. You called it our legacy. That was before the discovery of Father McGivney's hidden regime, his cover-up and betrayal only equal to the blood that's been shed over the years, given he was responsible for several deaths. The secrets and lies that involved several members of our prominent group left a permanent bitter taste in my mouth. I accepted your job offer, Christian, and I am restoring the finances of the sect, but I will never participate in the bullshit again. I'd always been known as the level-headed brother, kind and forgiving. That part of me was gone, finished. Whether or not Joseph McGivney almost fucked up our regime can no longer matter. He's dead and buried. We have new difficulties to face, enemies who will stop at nothing to crush us. I remain concerned that Christian had taken the patriarch position within the council, but without his leadership, the entire sacred sect would have imploded. While I'd pushed the ugliness aside, the truth always surfaced, claws ready to drag us into purgatory. All the wealth and power couldn't have protected a single member of the community if the council hadn't resumed its power. They'd been lucky to do so given the death of one member, the resignation of two others, including our father. Hissing, I knew he was right. There were far too many on both sides of the law who would stop at nothing to cut off our source of power. This is such bullshit, I managed. You are required to come, Mateo, he countered. You will follow the rules as mandated by the council. I put the drink on my desk, studying him intently. I have no problem backing you on various decisions, but I'm not playing this game, Christian. You will because it's your duty, he snapped, immediately sucking in his breath, the tension between us palpable. Family honor, that is still important no matter what happened in the past. We must carry on as Capodannos. We are powerful. We must control. We? Don't you mean you are? You're calling the shots, changing the rules to suit your needs, not mine. He snarled, fisting his hand. Don't you dare pretend you don't enjoy the spoils of the sect. I know better, brother. You revel in the money and the clout, the influence you couldn't have if you weren't a Capodanno. Fuck you. Get the hell out of my office. I glared at him, angrier than I'd been in a long time. Now! Maybe the past creeping back in was still far too difficult, the ghosts yet to be exorcised. I turned away on purpose, dismissing him. I heard the hard slam of his glass on my desk, the angry growl Christian emitted as he stormed toward the door. I also heard his heavy breathing as he attempted to regain control of his emotions. I've done some horrible things in my life, Mateo. Every member of this community has, including you. But in order to continue on with our way of life, we have to heal. We must regain control. There are too many others who are attempting to break us. I refuse to allow that to happen. Stand with me. Work by my side as you have all these months. We all must do our part, or not only will the sect be destroyed, a significant number of us will end up in prison. Or dead. I shifted in order to see him. He turned to face me, an anguished look on his face. And that includes you, brother. You're a bastard, Christian. You knew that all along. I have no choice, and neither do you. The secrets must remain intact. What aren't you telling me? I'd seen many emotions in my brother before, his contempt for rules and hypocrisy well known in our family. He'd been the black sheep while I'd played by the regulations as set forth by the council. He'd been the one dispelling the old traditions, the dangerous methods used in order to keep our way of life. I'd understood the requirements, even touting them to anyone in our community who would listen. The tide had turned 180 degrees. What I witnessed in his face was something I'd never seen before, and it had nothing to do with money. He was afraid of losing his life with his beloved bride. He was also afraid of dying. What in the fuck was going on? Whether or not he had intentions of sharing his deep concerns, I couldn't be certain. But that wasn't going to happen today.
Please be at the ceremony tomorrow night. If all goes well, use of the box will never happen again,
Christian stated with authority, the blip of fear completely gone. A promise made in a world full of lies. A cold chill shifted through me, a knowing that would haunt me for the rest of my life. I was being used as a pawn, my happiness traded for helping to keep the sect's secrets. There would be nothing I could do. For now. But I would hunt down the person or group responsible for jeopardizing our world. And they would pay.